her mental health.
Yeah, I think that was wrong. I went into politics after a career in business because of people's ideas, ideas about how we can make our country great again, how today we can help the myriad of small businesses on our high street in the face of Labour's attack on business rates. So it shouldn't be about people's individual characteristics. I think it was wrong. The party withdrew that and said it was a mistake.
Right, so Britain's political insurgents have gone from pub talk to council chambers, and it turns out running actual government is a bit more complicated than yelling at the telly. Who knew? Richard Tice, Reform UK's deputy leader and the man who looks like he's perpetually about to ask for the manager, is now locked in what he calls a ferocious battle with the people who actually understand how council budgets work. And honestly, this is absolutely brilliant viewing. Grab your popcorn, smash that subscribe button and hit the notification bell because British politics just got a masterclass in talk is cheap, governance is expensive. Here's what's happening. Reform UK, the party that's been telling anyone who listen that they can slash waste and cut costs like a hot knife through butter, has discovered something utterly shocking. Local government finance officers don't particularly enjoy being told to ignore basic financial prudence by politicians who took control of councils less than 9 months ago. I mean, the audacity of these qualified professionals, right? Imagine spending decades learning how pension schemes work, only to have someone rock up saying, "Yeah, but have you tried just cutting things?" Now, before we dive into this beautiful mess, let's set the stage. Reform UK currently leads national opinion polls. Yes, you read that correctly. The party that was basically a Nigel Farage fever dream a few years ago is now topping the charts like it's Drake dropping a new album. And because they're leading polls but have never actually run central government, their performance at local level matters. It's basically their audition tape for number 10. So naturally, they decided to kick off with one of the most complex, boring and financially critical aspects of local government: pension contributions. Bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off. So, here's the drama. Richard Tice, MP for Boston and Skegness, has accused senior council officials, specifically Section 151 officers, which sounds like something from a dystopian novel but is actually just the title for finance directors, of trying to bully reform by refusing to sign off council budgets. Their crime? These officers had the absolute nerve to say they won't approve budgets if reform cuts employer contributions beyond recommended levels. The horror. Qualified financial professionals insisting on financial responsibility. What's next? Doctors insisting on medical best practice? Tice told the world these finance officers were essentially holding councils hostage, saying, "If you reduce the employer contributions by more than we recommend, we're not going to sign off the annual budgets." Now, to the average person, this might sound like intimidation, but to anyone who's ever worked in finance, this sounds suspiciously like doing your job. It's the equivalent of a building inspector refusing to sign off on a house with no foundations and the architect screaming about being bullied. But let's talk numbers, because this is where it gets properly interesting. The local government pension scheme isn't some dinky little operation. It's absolutely massive. We're talking benefits for more than 6 million people, over £400 billion in managed assets across 86 administering authorities. This isn't monopoly money. The most recent valuation from March 2022 showed the scheme holding a £22 billion surplus. That's billion with a B. And industry expectations suggest that surplus has grown even further, with updated figures expected this spring. Currently, employer contributions average around 21% of salary. Robbie McInroy, head of local government at actuarial consultancy Hymans Robertson, which sounds incredibly boring, but these people literally predict financial futures for a living, has said average contribution rates are expected to fall to between 15 and 16% over the next 3 years anyway. So the system is already trending downward. Reform wants to go faster, harder, deeper into cuts.
And this is where Tice absolutely loses the plot. He described the actuaries, the people whose entire professional existence is calculating long-term financial risk, as financially negligent. He accused them of applying overprudence on overprudence, which is an absolutely wild thing to say. That's like accusing your parachute instructor being too cautious about checking your harness. Listen, mate, I know you've done this 10,000 times, but have you considered just YOLOing it? Overprudence isn't negligence. Overprudence is literally the opposite of negligence. It's like complaining your seatbelt is too safe. Now, here's where we need to pump the brakes and inject some actual reality. Council finance officers aren't objecting because they hate reform or love wasting money. They're concerned that cutting employer contributions too aggressively now could create absolute chaos later. If investment returns disappoint, which, in case you haven't noticed, markets do occasionally, or if liabilities rise, councils could face massive contribution demands down the line. It's the financial equivalent of cancelling your home insurance because you haven't had a fire yet. Technically saves money right now, potentially catastrophic later. Reform has made cutting waste at local authorities absolutely central to its entire political brand. We'll find efficiencies, they cried. We'll slash the bloat, they promised. We'll show you how easy it is, they proclaimed. And then they actually took control of councils in Nottinghamshire and Kent and discovered something absolutely shocking. Local authorities have said reform has carried out no centralised audit work at these councils nearly 9 months after taking control. None. Zero. Zilch. They've been in charge for almost a year and haven't actually audited where the waste supposedly is. It's like promising to clean someone's house and spending 9 months complaining it's dirty without actually locating the Hoover. And to give him credit where it's due, Tice has actually admitted they might have gotten a bit ahead of themselves. He acknowledged that expectations may have been raised too high when the party launched its efficiency drive last summer. In his words, reform might have got a bit excited about the comms, which is political speak for we oversold this massively and are now dealing with the consequences of promising things we couldn't immediately deliver. They created the impression they could quickly overhaul council finances with minimal preparation, which, and I cannot stress this enough, is not how literally any of this works.
But here's my absolute favourite part of this entire saga. Despite all this talk about cutting costs and slashing waste and showing those bloated councils how it's done, draft budgets published by reform-led councils show planned council tax increases. Let me say that again louder for the people in the back. Council tax increases. The party whose entire brand is "we'll cut your costs" is increasing council tax. Now, Tice has said reform-controlled councils will deliver lower average increases than Labour or Conservative councils, which is doing a lot of heavy lifting with the word average. It's like saying, yes, we're raising your bills, but we're raising them less than the other guys would have. Probably, maybe, trust us. Kent County Council, bless them, responded with the most deliciously diplomatic non-response ever crafted. Their spokesperson said Section 151 officers have a legal duty to provide impartial, professional advice and to ensure budgets are lawful, balanced and financially sustainable. Which is corporate speak for our finance people are doing exactly what they're supposed to do, and if you don't like it, that's a you problem. The fact they didn't directly engage with Tice's accusations tells you everything you need to know. They've taken the approach of, we're professionals, we'll let our work speak for itself, good luck with your temper tantrum. Now, why does any of this actually matter beyond schadenfreude and political entertainment? Because reform is leading national polls, and they've explicitly said they view their record in local government as a test of what they could deliver in central government. This isn't practice, this is the audition, and so far the performance has been, well, let's call it mixed. They promised efficiency, delivered accusations. They promised cuts, delivered council tax increases. They promised quick wins, delivered 9 months without completing basic audit work. And now they're in a public fight with the people whose job it is to make sure councils don't go bankrupt. Tice has said Reform will use their local government record as campaigning material for the May local elections. "We will use that as part of the campaigning material for elections," he said, which feels optimistic given that the record so far is "we fought with finance officers and raised council tax." That's quite the selling point. Vote Reform will argue with qualified professionals and increase your bills, but less than the other lot might have done, allegedly. Not exactly Make America Great Again levels of punchy messaging, is it? Oh, and just to add some extra spice to this already chaotic stew, Reform UK's Aaron Banks told Chopper's Political podcast that Doge would uncover the biggest national scandal in decades. I assume he means some kind of efficiency commission, not the cryptocurrency, though with this lot you can never be entirely sure. The idea that Reform has uncovered some massive, hidden scandal that qualified auditors, financial officers, and local government professionals have somehow missed is absolutely geek political hubris. Here's the thing that makes this whole situation so utterly fascinating. This isn't about pension contributions, not really. It's about the eternal tension between political promises and governmental reality. Reform campaigned on the idea that running government is easy, that efficiency is just sitting there waiting to be found, that professionals are either incompetent or deliberately wasteful. And now they're discovering that actually a lot of those professionals know what they're doing, that financial prudence exists for good reasons, and that cutting costs in complex systems requires detailed work, not just bold declarations. This is the rubber meeting the road, this is promise meeting practice, and the screeching sound you hear is Reform realizing that governance is actually hard, that systems exist for reasons, and that qualified professionals might, just might, know more about running councils than politicians who've been in charge for less than a year. So where does this leave us? Reform UK is locked in battle with council finance officers over pension cuts they can't prove are necessary or wise, at councils they haven't properly audited, while raising council tax and blaming everyone but themselves for the gap between promise and performance. They're leading national polls while simultaneously demonstrating at local level that their approach to governance is essentially trust us, ignore the experts, and maybe don't look too closely at the actual results. The May local elections are coming. Reform will campaign on their local government record, and voters will decide whether we fought with finance officers and raised your council tax slightly less than we think the other parties would have done, allegedly, is the compelling efficiency narrative they were promised. Political insurgency is easy, governance is hard, and Reform UK is learning that lesson in the most public way possible. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this glorious mess of political reality versus political promises, subscribe to Brit Article for more analysis of British politics at its absolute finest. What do you think? Is Reform onto something or out of their depth? Drop your thoughts below.